So I'm 7 years old watching KTV and I see...
Behold the ancient styles of Kung Fu. Monkey. Crane. Mantis. Viper. Tiger. Panda.
Don't tell Monkey.
That was the teaser trailer to the Masterpiece first movie in a Masterpiece trilogy. From that sentence alone, and the title, if you haven't put it together by now, I'll put it together for you. I adore Kung Fu Panda. It's one of the greatest animated movies, in my opinion, of course. We could talk about the entire trilogy in this video. I'm not gonna do that. I just want to talk about the first one. But Ariosity, I hear you ask. Why do you like Kung Fu Panda so much? Well, my dear 5 people who are gonna watch this, I'll tell you. Right from the first shot, we see an amazing 2D animated sequence. As a matter of fact, these 2D animated sequences that appear as dreams or memories are so good and get better every movie. And when we transition into the 3D animation, we see just how much work must have gone into making this movie look this good. From the detailed expressions on the characters' faces, to the huge, lively landscapes. Speaking of the landscapes, the world that Po and all the animals occupy is so rich and filled with life, it literally feels like a world that's lived in. I really like worlds that seem like they have existed and will continue to exist once the movie is over. The Valley of Peace seems like a small community that we could actually visit in real life today, minus the talking anthropomorphic animals, obviously. From the noodle shop to Poe's room to the Jade Palace, it all looks fantastic. Keep in mind, this is the same year animations like Horton Hears Who and frickin' Space Chimps came out. So having animations like Ponyo, WALL-E, and of course Kung Fu Panda was such a breath of fresh air for the animation genre as a whole. The animation looks so good for something that came out 2 entire decades ago. That's right? 2 decades. Maybe less, but this is even before the 2010s. And it still holds up super well up to now. Seriously, shout out to all these people. The animation design and style works so well, the motions are smooth and fluid, meaning the fast-paced action scenes are smooth and fluid too. Oh, that reminds me. The action in Kung Fu Panda is so dope, cool, good? Nah, bodacious. Starting with my favorite sequence from the movie, Tai Lung is escaping from the very bottom of a heavily guarded, heavily secure, heavily armed prison, which he does because of a feather. A feather! The whole escape itself is so well done, making it feel like they're different stages or levels like a video game. The contrasting colors of red and blue make for a unique visual look and feel. So it seems Tai Lung's color is blue or a bluish purple, and Po has this goldish color, and Uguay is green, which is cool considering he's like a good guy and he's got this pure image, which is tainted when the villain in the third movie absorbs his chi, and his color is green. But that's praise for another time. Then there's the bridge scene, which apparently was the most demanding scene to make, and it showcased super teamwork. See? Then there's obviously the final battle. Well, technically there's two final battles. The one with Shifu and the one with Po. Bro! This fight was so fun and whimsical, showing how much Po had learned and how his traits make him a formidable opponent for Tai Lung. This was overall so good. I've actually watched this final fight 6 times in a row, but that's nothing compared to how much I've watched the breakout scene. The thing about these action scenes is that they pack a punch. Everything feels like it has weight. And this movie is animated, dude. Some live action movies don't even have that. The coolest thing is, even though the Kung Fu Panda series is very comedy heavy, the fights in martial arts are pretty close to real accurate styles in real life that people practice. It all seems like they were paying homage to, or is it homage, to the classic, sometimes over-the-top martial arts flicks. So yeah, the action in Kung Fu Panda is awesome. And it is elevated by every fight scene having a purpose while posing stakes for the characters. Speaking of, these characters have been in my life for so many years now, and I'm really attached to all of them. From Shifu, to Po, to Uguay, to even Mr. Ping. But just so you know how much I adore these characters, I'll talk about them one by one for a little bit, starting with Shifu. Obviously, we know Shifu is a really good character, right? He starts out always wanting to be in control, or believing he is in control and has all the answers. But throughout the movie, we see him grow in a lot of ways. We see him accept that he doesn't have all the answers, and he can't control everything. We most significantly see him put his pride aside, both with the training and teaching of Po, and with Tai Lung when he admits what he had done. Man, the emotion in this movie. I especially like the scene towards the end when Shifu calls Po by his name for the first time, instead of just calling him Panda, and we see him grow and develop more in the other movies, just as we see Tigress develop more in the sequels, but she still gets the proper care and respect from the writers in this one. We see her from the beginning as someone who is no nonsense, just business. But as the movie goes on, we see the reasons why she's like that, and we learn and begin to really gravitate towards her and care about her. Because, let's face it,
I am hotter than you.
No, but seriously, she is my favorite and by far the best member of the Furious 5. Her development is also pretty good. We see her go from being frustrated and angry that Po just literally dropped in and stole the title of the Dragon Warrior from her. And the anger is pretty valid, just as the other Furious 5 members are also pretty angry about this. But eventually, we actually see her treat and show Po respect. Treat him with respect and show him respect. And the rest of the Furious 5 do that as well. Speaking of the rest of the Furious 5, we don't get much development for them, but they're fun and unique in their own ways. Yo, and everyone does such a great job with the voice acting. I didn't even know Angelina was Tigress until I looked it up. Uguay also didn't get much screen time, but he was also great, but everyone already knows that.
And the 5. Man, you should have seen them. They totally hate me.
Totally. It's a saying. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
Then there's Tai Lung, who from the very get-go is super intimidating and super skilled and super deadly. Throughout the movie, he just feels like a full-on unstoppable force, a tank, all the way until he has to face Po, who, if you actually look at it, Po defeats him pretty easily. Tai Lung has his nuances, and he's a character, not just a one-note villain. He is a character, because we learn his motivations early on, and we see that yes, he is evil, but ultimately he was wrong, and truthfully was turned this way by the people who thought they were doing the right thing. But seriously, a feather? Now the main man himself. I have a lot to say, but I'll try shorten it for you. Right from the start, we see that this guy is just a regular dude who has a passion for Kung Fu, and is just a huge fanboy. Something I really admire about how he was written is that he's not the typical chosen one who suddenly unlocks their power right after it's revealed that they are the chosen one. With Po, that isn't the case. He actually doesn't even believe that Uguay made the right decision, and he stays because he just wants to be someone more, something more. And probably also because he's literally living with his heroes and idols. So there's that. He has to practice and train to become better. My only issue about the montage is that we don't really get a sense of how long it took, because he trained and became super skilled before the Furious 5 even came back from fighting Tai Lung. But other than that, everything about the training montage and him learning was done pretty well. His journey just in the first movie is pretty heartfelt, considering he starts off hating himself. We know this from a line he says, and also it's not explicitly shoved in our face, but we do know that he thinks of himself as fat and all that, which makes it even more awesome by the end when he seems to embrace himself, his nerdy fanboy nature, and that his size and weight are not really an issue for him, and that it's just part of being a panda. Hell, the reason he even ended up going back and fighting Tai Lung is because he realized
There is no secret ingredient.
believing and accepting himself was really what saved the day. It's really what saved the Valley of Peace, and everyone, including Shifu, who ended up finding peace, as Uguay said. There's a phrase Uguay keeps saying. I think it goes something like,
It was just an accident. There are no accidents. There are no accidents.
how I understood this is that yes, accidents actually happen, and yes, things can be mundane and boring, or uninteresting, or hard, or uncontrollable. But it's whether or not you choose to change them, to make them less mundane and more special, or even whether or not you have the courage to accept yourself and believe in yourself, so that the accidents that do happen can still be made into something good, something worthwhile. I've been told I was wrong when I suggested that yes, Oogway was actually going to point at Tigress when Po fell into the arena. But he ended up pointing at Po. It was technically an accident, but because Oogway believed in this panda, that this panda could be something more, something special, he gave him a chance. And with care, patience, and training, he did end up becoming the Dragon Warrior. Not because he was destined to be the Dragon Warrior, but because someone put faith in him. And that's why Kung Fu Panda is the greatest animated origin movie of all time. Oh, and skadoosh. But what about the soundtrack though?